organization you watch, 2 or 3 very different people. We'll give you the fair assessment tomorrow.
We will stop inflation. We will make America affordable again. And we're going to bring back the American dream. We have tremendous potential in this country. We can do amazing things, and we can do them fast.
I'm Chris Cuomo. Thank you for joining me here at NewsNation. And that, of course, was Donald Trump a few hours ago, giving a press conference from his golf club at Bedminster, New Jersey. His second presser in a week. The contrast with Harris, who hasn't been doing them. She will begin tomorrow. And Trump here revealing what he clearly believes will win the election, convincing people that Kamala Harris is dumb and dangerous.
Kamala Harris is a radical California liberal who broke the economy, broke the border, and broke the world, frankly. I think I'm entitled to personal attacks. I don't have a lot of respect for her. I don't have a lot of respect for her intelligence, and I think she'll be a terrible president. Whether the personal attacks are good, bad, I mean, she certainly attacks me personally. She actually called me weird. He's weird. It was just a soundbite. And she called J.D. and I weird. Some people say, oh, why don't you be nice? But they're not nice to me. They want to put me in prison.
Fair point. So is the secret sauce in a grievance election what he's doing right now? Or is Trump playing into exactly what may beat him? Let's bring in conservative radio host, Trump's former Virginia chairman, John Fredericks, and Republican strategist, Rena Shaw. Good to have you both. Pro-con it for me, will you? Mr. Fredericks, did you like what you're seeing from Donald Trump and why?
Yes, 100%. And Chris, thanks for having me. Great to be back with you. Listen, we got to let Trump be Trump. This is how he won in 2016. This is how he got all those votes, whether you think he won or not in 2020. He got a lot of votes, 13, 14 million more than he had in 2016. You got to take the good with the bad. He's going to say some things that might grate on someone's nerves. I get that. But at the end of the day, his policies are what he's running on. Kamala Harris, like he called her out today, she's a communist. And so what President Trump is doing is, you know what he's thinking. You know how he feels. He's got the stream of consciousness out there. You got to let him be himself. You're not going to ever corral that. That's part of the appeal to average working people of Donald Trump, because it's like sitting at your kitchen table. No other politician is ever going to do this again, not before him, not after him. And that's the connection that President Trump is able to have with working class people that feel that he understands their plight and he talks plainly. You want to contrast that with Kamala Harris? She's not had a press conference in 3 weeks. The woman has not answered a question. So we don't know what she thinks. All we know is that her policies today is basically, I'm going to go down a communist path and do price controls like the Soviets did. That's her policy.
All right. So the only thing I would push back on is it's not if you think he won the last election or not. If you think he won the last election, you're an idiot, okay? Because he lost it, and we know that. And even he knows it. He just doesn't like to say it out loud because it injects sanity into the base. Rena, the question is, can he expand his reach beyond the base enough to win with what Mr. Fredericks likes so well?
If Donald Trump keeps holding press conferences like the one he just held this afternoon, he can definitely expect to shrink even his base. He's got to turn them out, number one. And he's planning on doing that, and he knows how to get to them and get them fearful and all riled up. But this communist talk, I got to push back. Look, I don't like federal price controls either, but I think she's just offering something here to say, we understand that the cost of living, your daily commodities is still pretty high. So you're looking at the numbers, Chris, and you are seeing some degree of success from all that Bidenomics. But without getting into the weeds, right now, I got to be honest with you. He sounded like a disgruntled customer at a supermarket at that press conference. It was nonsensical in many ways. There were low blows at her. When you attack somebody's character, you clearly have nothing else. And by the way, that something else, what are his policies anymore? I don't hear from him any sane, rational, conservative, right-leaning kind of tell me how you're going to fix this. Tell me how you're going to do better than Biden. All it is saying she doesn't speak to the press. She hasn't published her policies. They have the DNC next week. They're going to unveil their platform, and then she's going to tell us her policies after that.
Well, look, you can fairly criticize the lack of exchange to this point by Harris, not putting out more ideas. I love the idea of tell me what you're for, show me that you're better. But as we both know, Rena's not just a Republican. She's a strategist. She gets paid for her opinions. You win by attacking the other side. And this is a grievance election. And that's why it may be tough for the incumbent or the incumbent party to hold in. But from Mr. Fredericks, let's look at it from that perspective. If we're talking about my audience, okay, NewsNation, independence, not really right, not really left, but really reasonable, are you worried that Trump needs to recalibrate at some point to get the sanity vote?
No, because he is sane, because he's got a 20-point plan up on his website, and she has one plan, which is go to federal price controls, which is the Soviet Union, USSR communist plan. I mean, Rena,
you're really working that commie thing. What happened to the socialist label? Now we're just going full commie?
This is a communist plan, Rena, and there you go again, talking about his personal attacks. I mean, she has outlined today or tomorrow federal price controls on food. You know what that's going to bring? Just what they had in the USSR. Shortages of food, long lines, can't get it. They control the food supply. President Trump has got a 20-point plan that he rolled out at the RNC at the convention right on his website. You know what her plan is on her website? Price controls on food and long lines. They have no issues to go on. And you want to quibble about some comment he made that she might or might not be competent in this job. All he's got to do is do exactly what he did today. These are the issues. Here's what I'm running on. When I was president, energy was, you got gas for $1.87. Now it's $5.
Yeah, but here's the problem.
Higher, eggs are higher. Everything is higher.
Here's the problem. Okay. And Rena, you play off this point. The numbers are going the wrong way for him as he gets more and more full-throated with his attacks of Harris. So how do you read the numbers? And is the trend his friend, Rena?
I think whatever trend he thinks he's riding right now is just not going to work for him. He's clearly had a disastrous month. I mean, you see her being able to close the gap with him in a lot of polling. Across the board, she was behind him, and now she's caught up. In some, she's even leading. And so, look, I'm always wary of the polls, so I don't want to cite one here or there. But I'll say this. You say a 20-point plan, my friend, on his website. Where in that plan is he talking about getting to the supply chain issues, to getting to talking about what happened after the pandemic that led to the price of these daily commodities going up?
Too complicated. Too complicated. Rena, this is the problem with you being smart. You got to dumb it down for people like me and Frederick. Because here's the problem. People don't listen. No. I mean this. The American people are smart. They're savvy. Okay. But like all people, they're self-interested. And yes, there is an argument to be made. I believe that if I were to have a debate, even a marginally competent guy such as myself, Mr. Fredericks, I would be able to say, let me show you the data of what's happening in Germany, Italy, and the UK. Everybody is dealing with inflation, and we are dealing with it much better than most major economies. And you would argue because of what Biden has been doing to try to help it, even though the Republicans keep trying to stop it. The problem is, nobody cares about any of that stuff. They care about the fact that when they go to the pump, they have a problem. My only point is this, and I'll end on this, Mr. Fredericks. The numbers are, as Rena said, just a moment in time. Just a moment in time. But the expression is what got you here will not get you there. You referred earlier, this is how he won in 2016. I agree, but we are not there anymore. He has had an administration, he has a record, he has January 6th, and he has people who are worried about him. How does he allay those people's fears? He needs them to win, Brother Fredericks.
Well, he just did that today. He told you exactly what he was going to do, and he reminded you of how things were. When you go to the store and you try to buy a dozen eggs for your family and it's double what it was when President Trump was there, that gets your attention. This whole inflation started with them spending money that we didn't have in printing money. You know what? We're not going to get into the weeds, as you said, Chris, about Rena, but that's what started it. But the bottom line is, here's the bottom line.
That's not what started it.
I'm surprised she's not ahead after all of this media.
What started it.
That's not what
started the inflation problem.
Well, the love affair with her after 3 weeks with all the mainstream media, all the positive stories.
Yeah, it'll fade.
She's tied. Okay, so look, let's wait for the convention. At the bottom line is Trump needs to win 2 states, and he's president. Let's just boil this down: 2 states, Georgia, which he's ahead, and Pennsylvania, which I am today. In the Trump MAGA bus, go to magabusstore.com. You can follow us. He wins Georgia and Pennsylvania and holds everything else. He's not going to win Florida, Texas. Trump is president. So you can take all these polls. They're great talking points, Rena, but at the end of the day, we need to win 2 states. Georgia, we're ahead by 5.
Here's the last point. Here's the last point to Rena. The reason he lost those states to Joe Biden and whether he's remedied that, because now it's a dead heat, Rena, what's your read? Last point.
Look, I still see a path to victory for Kamala, even if she loses Nevada, Georgia, and North Carolina. That's where I'm looking. I understand she's been able to make up some of the deficit with the Sun Belt, and that's been important because that hits them right where it hurts. But again, those are 3 also crucial states, and I see a path to victory for her, even if she loses those 3 states. But moving on from that, Chris, the complicating factor this time around, and I'll leave you guys with this, it's American women. We are going to be the defining demographic this time around, and they're mad as heck down in places like Georgia at Trump.
Rena's from West Virginia. That's why she said heck. If she was from where I was, it'd be all big bleep line. But look, we all have to agree on this, whether we like it or not, Brother Fredericks. And that is, if women decide that this election is where they make their witness, they're the first class of voter we've ever had denied a right in America. And if they vote on that, you got a problem. But Kamala Harris has to create a movement and momentum on it. We haven't seen that yet. Rena Shaw, thank you very much. John Fredericks, appreciate the passion, as always. If we're going to talk numbers, I love these guys, but I got someone better. Pollster, legendary political pollster and strategist, Frank Luntz. It's good to see you, Frank.
It's great to be here. I'm sorry, Chris. I
got you all choked up, Frank?
Yes, wanted to do this show. I'm very, this really matters to me because in the end, it's really not about the numbers. It is about the democracy. And no matter what happens over the next 85 days or so, what kind of country are we going to have when it's all done? Are we going to be able to talk to each other? Or are we going to listen to each other?
So, Frank, first of all, as you know, that is exactly the business plan and concept for the outlet you're on right now. NewsNation is all about the conversation, to bridge it and get past the conflict. But this is a grievance election. And I need you to explain to the audience, how saleable is the democracy in danger? How many people will believe that Trump isn't just buffoonish sometimes as a bloviator, but that he's a real danger? Do you think that wins?
Well, let me give you a statistic that's really important here. 83% of Americans think that we're more divided today than we've ever been. And over 90% of those aged 65 and older who remember the Vietnam War, remember inflation at 20%, remember all the hell that we had in 1968, the assassinations, and they say it's worse today. That's number one. Number two is that more people believe that violence can at some point be acceptable to, quote, save democracy. And third, we still have 30% of Americans who don't believe in the election outcome of 2020. Chris, this stuff is very serious and very significant. In the focus groups I do, they will defend these points of view, and they will do so by shutting off other points of view. We get our news not to inform us, but to affirm us. So we watch things that we agree with rather than taking in new information. And that's my fear, because that's how you fix this. And finally, we need an education system that teaches critical thinking, how to disagree, when to disagree, and how to spot truth from fiction. And we don't have that either. So I'm very concerned. You know, I used to be a Republican. I don't talk that way anymore. I don't engage in those kinds of debates anymore, the yelling and screaming back and forth, because we're at a breaking point, and I don't want to be responsible for our democracy breaking.
So here's the observation, Frank, and I appreciate it. Very, very powerful insights. And I'm certainly taking that line, not to inform, but to affirm. I will never, I don't care that they have this tape existing. I'm taking your line, and I'll say I never heard it from you before, even though I'm saying it on live TV right now. That's how good a line it is. You are outlining an argument that both sides is using. Both sides are using it by saying, you know, Trump would say, Frank is right. The democracy is in peril because of these crazy radical lefties that Harris is going to usher in, because that's what she represents. Who's right about who's the danger to us?
Well, the issue for Trump is that he's been talking about attributes, and that's his weakest point. By attacking Harris for her ethnicity or for her crowd size, this is not relevant to this campaign. She's mistaken in that she hasn't held a press conference and hasn't given voters the right to know where she stands. In the end, it's a smart political decision, but it's wrong for democracy. And that's my issue with both sides, both candidates and supporters. It is not about who wins the next election. It is about who has the answers for the next generation. Chris, nobody is focused on that. It is now a belief that you can say and do anything to get elected because your opponent is actually your enemy. And we've gone too far in American politics by demonizing people that way.
Oh, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. That's why we're trying to be a little bit of the antidote here. Frank, I'd like to invite you back on a regular basis to do a check into the dialogue and what you think it's doing in terms of where the needle is in America's kind of like, let's say, tone temperature. I'd love to have you back because nobody understands it better than you. And I appreciate your candor.
And Chris, I also appreciate the fact that you've lowered the decibel level, that you're listening to people, you're requiring them to listen. The more that we learn, the less angry we will get, because the more that our voices will be heard. And that's what this is all about.
Frank Luntz is a legend for good reason, and he's saying things we should all listen to. Appreciate your brother. Feel better, and we'll do it again as soon as you want. Okay?
Thank you. Next week in Chicago.
Done. 4 minutes, 5 seconds. Coming up, Harris and Biden made their first joint public appearance today since Biden said he's not going to run. United to announce how they're going to beat Big Pharma again and lower prescription drug costs even more. How much Biden helps Kamala? And should there be less as more? Dueling Democratic takes on this issue, which is all important heading into the convention. Next.
Under Joe Biden's leadership, we have been able to accomplish. I've seen when the cameras are on and when the cameras are off. And you look at someone like Joe Biden for empirical evidence of it, is that the real measure of the strength of a leader is based on who you lift up.
Harris and Biden appearing together for the first time since the president dropped out of the race. What helps Harris win, more or less of being with Biden? Let's ask Cenk Uygur, host on the Young Turks, of course, one-time challenger to Joe Biden, and Chris Hahn, host of the Aggressive Progressive podcast. Simple question, single topic, so let's just get the best take. Chris Hahn, more or less of Biden and Harris helps her win?
Look, I don't think Biden hurts her, but I don't think he helps her. I don't really feel endorsements generally help anyone, for that matter. And I think that if she wants to make this a change election, a move on from what used to be election, she needs to do that on her own.
Can you do that, Cenk, when you were part of the administration you want to move on from?
Yeah, you can, but look, less of Biden. The problem with Biden is twofold. Number one, it reminds people that everyone who was in the administration pretended that he was fine when he obviously wasn't fine. Obviously, that's not good optics. Second of all, I love that he made the right decision, which Trump didn't, which was to let go of power. But the brother's got to be a little bit more gracious now. I mean, he barely talked about Kamala Harris in that appearance. And they've got to complement each other in the places that they agree. So the way to run on that is for Kamala Harris to say, of course I'm proud of the infrastructure bill, and we're going to get bridges and internet access to everyone and roads that are going to be fixed. So I'm proud of that record without belaboring their personal appearances with Biden.
Chris, I got a question for you. Do you guys realize yet that you're not playing by the same set of rules as your opposition? That Trump can do things, say things, and be in a way that you can't if you want to win, and how to figure out how to counter that with Harris?
Oh, it's been my number one talking point the last week. They're grading Trump on a curve, and we're not going to get that same curve. We're not going to get that same break. Anybody who said he was disciplined today was lying through their teeth. They should have just said he was disciplined for himself, which means he's completely undisciplined by any other matter. But yeah, you're right. We are not playing by the same rules, but I think that if we could make this election about Donald Trump and not about anything else, I think it's actually pretty good for America, because I don't think America wants him. It's the same old shtick. Everything he did today, he's been doing since 2015. And you know what? They even had to end Seinfeld because people were going to get tired of that, too. I think the American people are tired of this guy.
Ending Seinfeld was a mistake. Cenk, here's the problem. A battle to the bottom, I think Trump wins. I think this is a grievance election. And I think that the way for Democrats to get on top of it is to reverse it. This is what he's against. Here's what we're for. Isn't that the key for Harris and Walz? Or do you think in a battle to the bottom, you guys win?
No, we win if we run any kind of rational campaign, and I don't believe when they go low, we go high. I hate that strategy. Look, Chris, I argued in the beginning that Biden was too old and Trump was too crazy, and I think I'm right about both of those things. Trump is totally unhinged, and I think that one of the things they should do is find someone like me and appoint me Trump czar, and let me at the son of a gun. Okay, I changed the gun there. Okay, like
Appreciate
I would rip him up politically and rhetorically, right? Yeah.
Yeah, you would.
Look,
but your side doesn't enjoy it as much. Your side doesn't enjoy it as much.
Oh, I love it.
As but you guys, I don't buy it, and that's why Harris. Look, Mario Cuomo is my pop, right? Guy had hands that were literally the size of two of mine put together. He was all about sweet strength because Democrats don't like bullies. They don't like harsh strength. And that's why Harris and Walz, Dusty, play the montage. Play the montage. I'm not saying you're soft. I believe that vulnerability is the greatest strength. But what they're doing at this montage they're playing right now online is all about joy and the warm and fuzzy that they want to use as reaction formation to Trump. Listen.
I'm looking at Coach Walz right now. I'm looking at Coach Walz.
Like I have white guy tacos and
what is
like
that,
black,
like mayonnaise and tuna? What are you doing?
pretty much ground beef and cheese.
That's okay. Do you put any flavor in it?
No.
I'm the first vice president, I believe, who has ever grown chili peppers.
I'm trying to expand my food knowledge.
You know what? We've got some cantaloupes. You'll be fine.
Yeah.
So I called
was hoping
you, Tim.
maybe we wouldn't have to.
I called you, Tim.
Yes.
You didn't answer, Tim.
I know.
What happened?
The most important call of my life. It popped up, and we didn't recognize the caller ID.
Other than the trope of white people not properly seasoning their food, how do you feel about that, Han?
I season my food, for the record, I season my food very well. I'm half Italian.
Of course you do.
And I love hot and spicy food. But here's the thing. She is still in the bring the base home part of the election. That's why you go out with Biden, because there might be 1 or 2% that are still upset about it. You go out there with Biden, you bring them back. The real election starts after Labor Day. And let me correct you something about New York politics, which you and I are both students of. There was a guy named Al D'Amato who won 2 elections by going low, and the Democrats who ran against him went super high. And then my former boss, Chuck Schumer, got down there and punched it out with him, and he lost. Right? And that's sometimes how you got to do it. Sometimes you got to get out, you got to get down there, and you got to fight. And that's what Chuck did in New York in 1998. And I think that to a certain extent, Harris has to do that now. But the fight here is to say, do we really want to go back to this maniac? Do we really want 4 more years of the chaos that this guy brought? you pointed out, because I think that the American people are done with him. And I think you're seeing it in the numbers already. The fact that she's caught up with him in some polls on things even like the economy, it's not because she's better on the economy or introduced economy messages. It's because the people taking that poll don't like Trump. Just like with Biden, they were like, he's old. It
let me give Cenk a last word.
Every single measure of Biden, and it's... Go ahead.
Let me give Cenk a last word here. There's two caveats. One, who's Chuck Schumer? Where's that guy been? I haven't read. Where is that? The Middle East is on fire. All of a sudden, where is he? Where was he during all the Biden stuff? Where's Chuck Schumer? I thought people lead from the front. Where's Chuck Schumer talking about anti-Semitism? Where's Chuck? Anyway, this is the other thing, Cenk.
Chuck Schumer's got a book coming out on anti-Semitism.
Yeah, great. I look forward to the book. Cenk, what is the antidote to Trumpism? The ABT vote is not enough, anyone but Trump. You don't win the election on just animus. When do they stop talking about themselves and start talking about what they'll do for people?
Yeah, I think you got to do all three things. So what they're doing there in the montage you showed is on the Young Turks, we call it Operation Joy, right? And so you want to put on a friendly, happy face. Great. That's effective. You want to be likable. That's really important for the candidates. But to your point, Chris, they also have to run on policy and their record. And the good news is Tim Walz has a terrific record, paid family leave, child tax credit, et cetera. These are all very popular. And Biden passed bills that are popular. So you have a good record, and you should focus on that. And the third thing is let your surrogates, me, Chris, other people, go and rip this guy's face off. Politically, rhetorically. So this guy is absolutely nuts, and we do that on the Young Turks too. Trump brackets, 64 the craziest things he's ever done. I mean, look, he just did it again. What is this insane conspiracy theory about how there's no one in Kamala Harris's crowds and it's all AI? A lunatic would believe that. An absolute raving lunatic. And we don't want a president who's actually mentally unstable.
But remember, different rules, right or wrong. People don't judge it when Trump says it the same way. Cenk, I got to jump. Chris Hahn, thank you very much. Cenk Uygur, as always, welcome here. Rip their face off. You don't hear Democrats say that very often. I'll talk to you later. Let's go to break. 4 minutes and 30 seconds. Cenk is a tough guy. Literally said, rip your face off. One of the most beloved actors of all time, Friends star, Matthew Perry. You know the story about him being found dead. There was this BS notion in the beginning that he didn't do it to himself, someone did it to him. Maybe it wasn't all wrong. 5 people were just arrested for playing a role in Perry's death. 2 of them, his doctors. 1, a personal assistant. The other, someone that authorities is referring to as the ketamine queen. We've got the lawyer for her. How does he feel about that moniker and a look inside a world of drug use you don't get to know?
Ketamine was a very popular street drug in the 80s. There is a synthetic form of it now, and it's used for 2 reasons: to ease pain and help with depression. Has my name written all over it. They might as well have called it Maddie.
To reach adulthood. That's why vaccines matter so much. For 40 years, Rotary and partners have delivered vaccines globally. Like here and even here, in your neighborhood and around the world, Rotary is ensuring children grow up safe from preventable diseases.
Sometimes we know what's next. Other times, it's impossible to know. Life can change in an instant. Don't be caught standing by the next time someone's heart stops. Knowing CPR gives you the ability to act and takes you from bystander to lifesaver. CPR is a life-saving skill. Join the nation of lifesavers today by learning CPR at heart.org/nation. National support for CPR education provided by Elevance Health Foundation.
My name is Corporal Bradley Joseph Seitz.
Jerry Reed.
Kate Weber.
These are real veterans facing a real challenge.
I have PTSD.
And I have PTSD.
I have PTSD.
Post-traumatic stress disorder can happen to anyone.
I was still in a war zone in my mind.
But treatment can turn your life around.
Treatment has really saved my life.
To learn about PTSD and how treatment can help you, call your local VA medical center or visit ptsd.va.gov.
When I first had my baby, I'd get comments all the time about how happy I must be. I remember thinking, I want to be happy. Why don't I feel that way? It was hard to admit that even to my doctor. But I'm glad I did. She told me it was postpartum depression, and that is very treatable. These days, things are feeling good, and we're both happier about that. Right, little man? I'll take that as a yes.
Mental health care is working for Simone. See what it can do for you at mentalhealthcareworks.org. A message from the American Psychiatric Association Foundation.
You're listening to Cuomo on NewsNation. To find NewsNation on your screen, go to joinnn.com.
What if high schools could totally rethink high school? What if we told you that some already have? Imagine high school, where the love of teaching and the love of learning are colliding, where students are learning math and history and art and physics, graduating ready for college, for careers they care about, and life. What if we told you that right now, the powerful change we're seeing in high schools across the country is possible in your neighborhood too? Don't believe it? Watch now at rethinkhighschool.org.
Pregnancy-related deaths in the U.S. are on the rise. The reason? Cardiovascular disease. And Black, Hispanic, and Native American women are the most at risk.
I never thought my pregnancy could cause heart failure. I experienced my first heart attack after the birth of my son.
But high blood pressure, gestational hypertension, and diabetes can put mom and baby at risk.
Visit goredforwomen.org/pregnancy to learn more, because my health is our health.
To the big-hearted, the bold, the teachers, the growers, the builders, the change makers. We need you. We are the Peace Corps. In more than 60 countries, we go the distance to make a difference. We're volunteers, partners, communities, bringing our experience, joy, and passion to building a better world together. Are you looking for more? Then we are looking for you. Join us at peacecorps.gov.
Today with our law enforcement partners to announce federal criminal charges related to the death of the actor Matthew Perry. These defendants took advantage of Mr. Perry's addiction issues to enrich themselves.
Now, this is going to pop a lot of eyebrows, right? U.S. Attorney for the Central District of California, Martin Estrada, today announcing that 5 people charged in actor Matthew Perry's drug-related death. 2 doctors, Perry's personal live-in assistant, 41-year-old Jasveen Sangha, and an alleged drug dealer known as the ketamine queen, says authorities. It's been almost a year. It's been like 10 months since Perry was found dead at the same age as me, 54, unresponsive in his California jacuzzi. There was some intrigue. Oh, did somebody kill him? No. He killed himself. An autopsy revealing he died from acute effects of ketamine, a drug used to treat depression and anxiety. Today, we learn more about the death. According to authorities, in the fall of 23, Perry sought treatment for depression and anxiety, went to a local clinic, became addicted to IV ketamine, very rare. His doctors refused to increase the dosage, so what did Perry do? He went doctor shopping, which happens very often. He finds 2 others, and over 2 months, they gave him approximately 20 vials of ketamine to Perry for $55,000. Now, the question is that the duty of care? Now you have the cost. 1 vial cost the doctors $12. They charged Perry $2,000. One doctor even texted, I wonder how much this moron will pay. As his addiction grew, Perry wanted more and cheaper ketamine because it was expensive, right? So he turned to an alleged local dealer. 4 days before he died, the dealer allegedly bought 25 vials of ketamine from the ketamine queen. And the day Perry died, his assistant injected him with ketamine at least 3 times. He found Perry dead in the hot tub later that night. Let's bring in familiar face, Mark Garagos. His firm represents the dealer I'm talking about, known by authorities as the ketamine queen. Counsel, thank you for taking the opportunity.
My pleasure. Hi, Chris. How are you?
You tell me, what's the position?
Well, I have a little bit of pushback on, the ketamine queen is actually listed in the indictment. Can you imagine if I started calling U.S. attorneys names whether they would countenance that. So I think that's a little over the top. I get that they think it's very theatrical, but it's a little much, number one. Number two, you had played in your setup here I assume that was from Matthew Perry's audiobook. And yes. Even Martin Estrada, who I know well, I've tried cases against Martin Estrada back before he was the U.S. attorney. I think even he stated that they had taken advantage of his status as an addict. And when I say they, talking about the people who have been indicted.
The doctors.
And I think they've got a problem. I mean, I think in a civil case, you have the issue of causation. It doesn't go away or evaporate in a criminal case. In fact, it's even a more heightened ability. It's I think, over-the-top legal theory. It's a tragedy all the way around, but that just because it's a tragedy doesn't mean it's criminal.
Now, you almost never hear about a drug dealer getting convicted for an addict's death. And I want to talk about that, but that's my second question. My first one is, removing yourself from the analysis for a second, what is the duty of care and the breach that I know those are civil terms, but for this to be a crime, what level of responsibility do they have to show a doctor had that would trigger a criminal offense for the maltreatment of a patient?
Well, it's interesting for the doctor because as you laid it out, you just gave the example, and I think it pretty much mirrored the way the indictment was laid out. I don't know that there is a causation, a but-for link between the doctors and the death. And that's a real problem. And I think that, like I said, I think it's a stretch for a criminal case. I just don't see it in terms of a criminal case. And that's what we're dealing with here. I understand people want to hold people accountable. I get that. That's one of the reasons the U.S. attorney brought the indictment. But I think they're going to have a very tough time holding people accountable based on this theory without more.
So the question is, the second question is, you're right. There's a problem with the but-for analysis because of your client. So the answer is, because the drugs that killed him came from your client, and they found all these drugs to kind of manifest her as the ketamine queen. This will be their basis for why they say they're calling her that. And is it your client's responsibility criminally for Matthew Perry's death?
Well, I'll just I'll posit we want to deal in hypotheticals. How do we know where the drug came from that caused the death? As far as, as many the homicide cases as I've done in my career, I've never seen a pathologist yet who's going to be able to say, I'm going to do an autopsy and I'm going to trace back where these drugs came from. They can't do that. There's no science.
The assistant. They cut the assistant a deal, and he says, I got the drugs from her, and I gave it to him.
Right. And the assistant is the one who administered it. So reminds me of what my father used to say, you give the bank robber immunity to get the getaway driver. So I'm not so sure that that's a causation, a but-for analysis.
Mark Geragos, I appreciate this. I got to say, I was very surprised by this. I mean, I'm sure you knew it was coming, and it is a real... By the way, now that I think about it, what a good high mark for Mark Geragos. I speak to him all the time. He never mentioned this to me. That's a lot of integrity for a counsel.
Never would. Never would.
I appreciate it. Thank you for the analysis. To be continued. Thank you very much, Mark Geragos. We're going to take a break. 3 minutes and 45 seconds. Be right back. Oh, you're going to want to hear this. My godfather passed today. Godfather is often a ceremonial title, but not for Dr. Nicholas D'Arienzo. Took care of me as a pediatrician and then really took care of me again after my father died. I realized today when I was with his family that I needed to tell you about him, about how he was. So, Nikki and my father were college buddies, but really they were more like sweethearts. My father loved Nikki, loved him so much he's the only man I never ever heard my father talk to in any way but deference. Loved Nikki so much that my father, who was proud and old school, loved to tease Nikki about why he was the only other person in the family that had my eye color. And Nikki would laugh. This marvelous, chuffing laugh that seemed to be pumping up his heart, literally. Now, I just lost the last male association with my pop, and that really hurts. But I'm not simply lionizing a life. Uncle Nicky was different. He was different from many, if not most, men of his generation and station. Different than most people, period. A son of Italian immigrants, profoundly Italian, came up in Brooklyn when it wasn't hip, in a funeral home business, became a doctor, the pinnacle of ethnic achievement. But his ability to care went way beyond his pediatric practice. You see, these men of this generation are often hardened by life. They are an example of toughness, like my pop, resilience. But Nicky had something extra. You see that smile? Nicky had a nature and quality that is not just the epitome of strength, but what we need so much more of today. That's why Nicky's passing is such a loss. The man on your screen had the most beautiful power, compassion, a sweetness, a lust for life. He gave people chances. He gave people help. He believed in our potential, and he insisted on seeing what could be. He would say to me when I was coming down on someone or something, or, Christopher, you look at it from their eyes. Or, he'd joke with me, look at the muscles. The only one that matters is your heart and how you give it. And Nicky gave. My wife, Christina, said he lived for others. And that was his joy. Patience, then patience kids, then patience grandkids, the church. He believed that you show your faith. Young people he would engage with all the time until the end, encouraging them to be the next to be great. He taught me the daring of caring. Don't just say you believe in God. Show grace, show mercy, and love, even when nothing comes back, especially when nothing comes back. He loved his wife. My godmother, Arlene, passed some years ago. He loved his kids, Carmel, Nick, Peter, his grandkids, and he loved to love. Everything wasn't just good. It was beautiful, fantastic. Each one like biting a piece of the pleasure. Fantastic. And then my pop died. And Uncle Nicky came for me again and again. He called me. He met with me. He ate with me. We would walk with his wife and then alone. And he would ask me to think about how I feel about things. Don't just think about how you think about how you feel. Look at your life. Take the time. Appreciate it. Don't worry about what you're supposed to do because the answer is simple. Focus on helping whoever, however. And I listened and I believed because my godfather lived it. The last time I saw him, he was fading until I played my Bella singing in a video. Watch how he engaged. He had pads on his elbows, but no need to cushion his heart, the focus, the swaying. The wind is in my hair and there's a smile on my face. Those are our Bella's lyrics and she nailed it. That's how my godfather lived, and we need so much more of it today, especially now. A godfather to me, but an example for all of us in a world that is way too easily satisfied with being less than we can be. Nick D'Arienzo showed us for 92 years there is a better way to be here for each other and to love and to make it a passion and a purpose. I need him in my life more than ever, and he's gone. So I'm going to keep his example front of mind and full of my heart. I'm going to show it. I'm going to see it in my wife. I'm going to remind my kids, just like my godfather would want. If God is good and God is good, Nicky is with Arlene and his brother John and my pop and all his pals who preceded them. They're all together and they are laughing and looking down, hoping we keep the faith. And I hope we do. We'll be right back.
From the get-go.
The point of all of it, the point of what we're trying to do here at NewsNation, the point of why you're sick of left and right and you want reasonable is that nothing changes if nothing changes. So, yeah, you want to fight dirty, you're probably going to have the best chance to win. But that's because of the expectations and the standards. At some point, don't you see that all the signs are that we can't just rage our way to a better place? Somebody has to start standing